specifically the recent the IMF visit to Sri Lanka, I think you were very clear at the very outset when the IMF program, some details were released. You said that the fiscal adjustment is very sharp, it's very quick. And you said the revenue budgets are going to be tough to meet.
Yes.
And just like you said, in January we missed one set of revenue targets, and now we've missed another set of revenue targets. Now you're in Colombo, I'm in Colombo, we meet a lot of these business people. So business people, what they're asking about is, these taxes are unbearable for us. We don't have any profits, we can't reinvest, we can't invest in our staff, etc. But I think they also perhaps don't understand that we are coming from what it was 7 to 8% of GDP, our total tax revenue, and now maybe it's at 12, 13%. But the reality is that we may have to reach maybe 20, maybe 22%. What would you say to, let's say, a small, medium business owner who's already paying a lot of taxes? And also, Dr. Harsha, the indirect taxes in Sri Lanka, it's about 80 to 85% of all taxes are from indirect taxes. And generally the thinking is, maybe you disagree, that indirect taxes is a little bit regressive. So already you see a lot of problems in our tax structure. Plus, I think you yourself have mentioned that the top personal income tax, marginal tax rates are not enough. It's in the mid-30s. Corporate tax, 36%. So can you give us a brief on how a future SJB government would rewire this tax structure? Because you basically said that you will refine, and SJB government will refine the IMF agreement to benefit the people. So could you give us a breakdown on that?
Yeah, I mean, now it was during Mr. Premadasa's time that we had the highest tax revenues to government revenue or GDP. That was close to 20-21%, right? And by after his demise, by about 94, 95, we were becoming a real player. Emerging out of a sort of statist, inward-looking, low growth country, becoming outward-oriented, export-driven, dynamic, efficient. While there was a war, efficient operation, right? So exports are beginning to expand. Vietnam and Sri Lanka exported $3.5 billion that year, 94, 95 that time, right? After Mr. Premadasa's 200 apparel factory program had gotten off the ground, right? And government revenues were around 20% of GDP. So he was able to, or that administration was able to, and 2 IMF programs, not one, 2 IMF programs, right? While the reforms were done to unshackle the economy, increase productivity, think about total factor productivity, thinking about technology infusion, bringing FDIs, factories, new equipment, knowledge, all of that needed to create efficiencies in the enterprise of Sri Lanka. He was able to really revamp the welfare system, look after people, start the program to give people over a determined period of time, Nati Barriaya, Ati Hakiya Kiremu, Vadapiliwala, right, and start building houses. How? Because he had 20% of almost tax the government was collecting. So he was able to balance this, right? And then what happened was, from that time on, tax to GDP started falling. And when, this time when we went bankrupt, it was like 7.5%, 8%. Right? There was a slight pickup in 2015-16 after Mr. Ravi Kananayaka and subsequently Mr. Mangal Samarveera sort of refined tax policies, and Mr. Mangal Samarveera brought in the 2018 Inland Revenue Act, which then really started the trend going upwards. Mr. Kananayaka's was more of a one-time that supercharged super tax. So anyway, but so it started to decline, right? So now, and also on the export side, Kusum, I told you these two countries exported the same amount because we were progressing. Vietnam was also beginning to progress. Now last year we exported $12.5 billion, okay, and Vietnam exported $336 billion, right? And Vietnam is not looking, at bankruptcy. Vietnam is not having any of the problems we are having, right? In fact, the foreign direct investment is pouring into Vietnam. They cannot meet the request of so many FDI coming in. Everything that is getting relocated from China, right? Pretty much is landing up in Vietnam. Now, if you look at, and they have no problems in taxes because the economy is growing. There is activity. People are paying taxes, right? Now here what's happening is there is no growth, there is no expansion, and obviously people who are paying taxes are squeezed to the limit and some more to extract the last penny, and they are saying, I just can't do it anymore. Either I don't pay taxes and evade, or I just find a better place, in Auckland or Sydney or London or Los Angeles, and I try to find Toronto and go away, right? Now, so what we need to do is, obviously, if the economy is growing, both import export taxes, there are not export taxes, there shouldn't be, but various border taxes you can collect, right? I mean, importing a car brings in a massive amount of tax to the state, but now we can't import cars because we don't have dollars, so the customs is unable to collect the revenue. So then you have to collect the revenue from the pay tax, right? So one is you grow. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? We don't need to argue on that, right? Because same percentage of a million is so much more in actual rupees than it is of 100,000.
Yes.
The other component is about equity in taxes. Like you said I may disagree. I don't disagree. I agree that this is a regressive structure. We need to make it more progressive, right? And people who make more must pay more. So that shift has to happen. We all have been talking about it, even though nothing really has. It's moving in that direction, I must say. But the most important thing is tax administration.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the software is not working. People who are supposed to pay don't pay.
Self-assessments.
Self-assessments. Now you saw, right? I have recently published something that the government this year expects to collect 115 billion rupees in self-assessed taxes, personal income taxes. They will end up, in my view, with less than 40 billion. Whereas the PAYE, they expected to get 100 billion, they probably get 150 billion.
Yes.
Anywhere between 125 to 175 billion. And that again is only 70% compliant. It cannot be 70% compliance. It has to be 100% compliance. So that is why I have suggested that when you extract it involuntarily, right, you can still get the $100 billion rupees by reducing the marginal rate from 36 to 24. I have done the numbers on behalf of the SJB. I have presented it as a political party, and I have said that these rates can be brought down so that at least some of the burden faced by the professionals who are complaining that it is too much taxes can actually be given a reprieve.
So it's up to 350,000.
No, up to 2.5 million, or more, whatever amount on pay. Right? We have done the tax calculator. Now, for instance, I'll tell you how much. Let's say a senior professor at Jawadanapura gets 400,000 rupees.
Okay.
Currently, he pays 70,500 in taxes. when people say 36% I have to pay taxes, that's not true.
Yeah.
Because it's on a slab basis.
Slab basis.
So at 400,000 rupees, 70,500 is, I think, about 17% you pay in taxes.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
Right, let's all be real
Effective
about
rate,
it.
yeah.
Effective rate. But according to the new calculation, it's 42,500 rupees. So it's about 10.5%. So my argument is, look, you can't say that 10.5% is too high, no, right? So that's the thing. And also, like, we have been following this case on the stickers and alcohol bottles.
Yes.
Right, billions. Vijaydas Rajapaksa, the Minister of Justice, says the loss could be as high as 80 billion rupees. That's all that is double the personal income tax that is going to be collected this year. Double the collection of personal income tax, according to Vijaydas Rajapaksa, is a loss because of the fraud in the alcohol sticker. Now, that is how many people do you think are involved in that? On both sides of the equation.
I think another thing, the IMF had mentioned the wealth tax. Now, some of the research I did, wealth taxes rarely generate the kind of revenue that they expect to, but since we have very low wealth taxes, or maybe no wealth taxes, we may have to introduce something. Then there's talk of capital gains taxes, transaction taxes. But recently, Minister Amunagama, he mentioned the Colombo Port City, a new spate of tax holidays and tax incentives. Now, I wonder how that fits in, because on one side, as you said, we have to attract investment, we have to get FDI. But on the other hand, if you're inviting FDIs and you're giving away tax holidays and incentives, there should be a clear idea for the Sri Lankan people of what the benefit is. At least, okay, if the tax holiday is 3 years, there's no benefit in the first 3 years. But in the next 7-8 years, there will be this is the X benefit, this is the Y benefit that we expect. Have you seen that kind of some sort of data analysis on this? Because tax holidays have come under pressure, because we see a lot of local companies, local businessmen enjoying tax holidays. They just open a new company, a new private limited company, apply to the BOI, and they get the tax holidays. So how do we work our way around this? And what would you say to Ms. Amnugam on this new tax holidays?
Yeah, this is crazy, because my thinking is whatever incentive you get has to be linked to the kind of investment you make. You make a small investment in year 0, and then you don't pay taxes for 35 years. That's a hell of a how do you do, right? So there has to be a link, right? So that is fundamental, right? It cannot just be based on I am the friend of the minister. The minister has something called the Strategic Development Projects Act that he can sign, which has no relevance to the standard operating procedure that is applicable to Section 17 investors in the BOI, for instance, right? So all these crazy things need to go away. This was brought in by Basil Rajapaksa, by the way, right? And in the IMF's diagnostics, they say that this has to be immediately stopped, right, and suspended and stopped over a period of time. So, I mean, recently there was a, this went viral also in one of our committees. I asked the chairman of the BOI a simple question. You are asking for a 17-year tax holiday for a particular company. What is the tax expense? How much are you, losing in terms of taxes? For which the answer was not available. He said, I'll have to check with the investor and let you know, right? Subsequently, he's no longer there, but they removed me also,
yes,
right? I have somehow come back, but so that is the thing, right? There has to be an analysis. Yes, we have to have incentives, but at what cost? What is the net present value of this incentive that you're going to provide, right? So you can take a sort of a simple accounting type calculation, right? You can some IRR, some accounting type calculation, but you can look at a broader economics type calculation, economic rate of return, so going beyond the output, to the outcome, so looking at the connected indirect benefits that the society as a whole accrues. I mean, there are many ways in which you can assess these things, both quantitatively and qualitatively, and be able to arrive. But in order to do that, you must have the capability to analyze.
Yes.
Right? So, future SJB government will certainly do two things. One is we will introduce a mechanism by which the incentives that the investor receives will be linked to the volume of the investment on the one hand, and perhaps quality of the investment. We will be able to come up with certain KPIs on that,
I mean,
right?
return, whether it's employment, whether it's foreign currency, whatever it is.
Yeah, but let me tell you one thing, that in our government, what we will do is we will dichotomize investments into tradables and non-tradables. What we want are investments into tradables. Every dollar invested doesn't mean it is going to bring the same benefit to the people of this country. It's not equal, right? Putting $1 million into producing wiper blades to a company that is using those in its manufacturing plant in Chennai is going to be 10 times more valuable than if that amount was put in building an apartment building in the city of Colombo.
Yeah, it's about investing, incentivizing the investment in the right areas.
Yes, so tradable investment. Tradable, that means you invest in companies that are able to compete with others in the world, not non-tradables where there is no competition, or building something locally with all kinds of tariff protections and favors given to various local people, right, who will never be competitive if it was opened out to a global bid. And Sri Lanka's problem, Kusum, is with lack of dollars, right? So investments must be encouraged in areas where the outcome, the products, goods or services will bring in dollars, right? So you invest in an apartment building in the city, right? You import all the things duty free, etc., make massive profits as a real estate or a developer, and you make some rupee revenue from that, right? That also gets diluted in margin, right? How do you pay the dollar loan or the cost you incurred in importing the raw materials in the first place? So the focus must be on outward orientation. Focus must be on on tradables. Focus must be in linking Sri Lanka with the sort of global production networks.